Hello and welcome to another episode of Lexx Education. It's the comedy science podcast where usually me, comedian Laura of the Lexx variety, tries to learn nearly A-level science from her nerdy, normal younger brother Ron. However, today it's our Valentines special. So what are we doing, Ron?
Talking about oozing peepees and grimy vaginas.
Yeah! We thought, hey, what do people do at Valentine's Day? They bang, or they try to bang. They smush uglies. So what could be more scientific than looking at the science of all the things that can go wrong with banging, such as sexually transmitted infections. I swear they changed. When I was young, they were STDs, and then they became STIs.
Yeah. I think that happened when I was a teenager, I think.
Yeah, I feel like that happened. I don't know. Was I at school? I can't think I'd have known what they were before learning them at school, so I guess after school slightly.
You didn't get the gonorrhea and AIDS talk from Mum and Dad?
No. I do remember I have like one of those weirdly specific memories of being in the front seat of the car, coming back down our road, and there being something on the radio about STIs or something like that, I don't know, came up. And Mum saying, and that's why it's important that before you have sex with anybody, you have to get them checked out. And me thinking, gosh, that's amazing then that you can just like do that on the way home from the pub or whatever. Because I'd seen in enough TV shows that people like went home with each other from things. And so it was like, incredible. You can just drop into the hospital on the way home and get an STI check.
But also, I mean, it's not bad advice, but also just use condoms.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe she did say that too, but I haven't remembered that because my thought process disappeared off down this.
No, that's fair. I was at the pub with some friends last night, and they were talking about people we know that, and there's like one or two guys that admit to just like never using condoms.
Oh.
And I thought that was fucking insane.
Like never ever. Ew.
One of the people that we were talking about, the person that brought this to the group, claimed that he said he'd never used one.
Has he only ever been in like monogamous relationships then?
Yeah, I don't think he sleeps around like a lot, but as far as I'm aware, he's never had like a long-term partner either.
Wow. Maybe you can get like a points card at the local STI clinic. Yeah, like a Tesco club card. A junk card. What would you call it? Don't know.
No.
Anyway, hope everybody out there's banging safely. But we thought we'd look at it's a sciencey thing. We thought we'd really kill the mood of your Valentine's Day. Now, we're both back in relationships and therefore not having any sex.
I had to view some really grim images during my research for this.
So Ron has looked at actual science and the current medical advice on sexually transmitted issues. I have looked at the king of STIs, the history of STIs and diseases, and what people thought was going on before we knew about bacteria and stuff like that.
I can't stop looking at that image that I sent you from the World Health Organization.
I mean, let's start with that because it's so weird. So Ron obviously started doing his research yesterday and sent me an image. So this is the World Health Organization's image about sexually transmitted diseases. And there's, what are we guessing here? A mum and a dad on a beach with their teenage daughter?
I don't know. Because they all look different ages.
Yeah.
Almost like maybe even 3 siblings.
Could be. But they're stood in swimwear on a beach at magic hour, and the woman in the middle is holding a condom and the
Like
packet.
Frodo holds the one ring.
Yeah. The man is gently resting his hand on her hand that's holding the packet.
You might imagine he's just handed the condom to her.
Possibly.
Or is like waiting to sort of take it from her. It's that kind of a gesture.
Yeah, and the younger maybe looking girl has her hand on the middle woman's shoulder and is smiling quite enthusiastically.
Bit of a cheeky grin.
Like, are these guys about to all go at it together on the beach?
Well, I just feel like that's the implication when there's three people all staring at a condom like this. But why on the beach?
Yeah.
And the dude's definitely talking. He looks like he's explaining something.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. And as you say, a real key detail is that it is magic hour. Like, it's a nice shot.
It's lovely. The light's incredible. Choices were made, and I'd love to know.
Oh, there's credits, actually.
Yeah, I just tried. Oh, I'm trying to click your screenshot. Ooh.
Oh.
Nothing about the history of that photo?
No, it just kind of explains it, actually. It says, members of a youth-to-youth group in Mombasa, Kenya go for community outreach on the beach. They distribute condoms and perform skits with messages related to reproductive health.
Oh, okay. So
they're doing educational stuff to beachgoers.
Okay. I think then, right, this makes a lot more sense now, but I do think that caption needs to be more readily available.
Yeah. That's disappointing, actually. I wish I hadn't found that.
I'm glad I found it. Because otherwise it's such a weird decision. On a page that, let's face it, nobody really wants to be visiting.
No. It's an odd moment of levity on a very dry page.
Yeah. Choices were made. Okay, so speaking of condoms, though, Ron, do you want to hear an early use of a condom?
Yes.
Probs not
of
on
yours.
beach. No.
Oh, just in history, yes.
Don't be stupid. I'm a full-grown adult. So my first bit of information, until I give another... I've got no words today. Until I give another credit, this is where all this information is coming from. This is the UK HSA blog gov blog. STIs through the centuries. So King Minos of Crete... There's a record of him having used a goat's bladder as a condom.
Ugh.
Yeah. Fucking big penis. Wide and round.
Bulbous.
Yeah, I'm assuming stitched. Would you stitch it?
I wonder... What did they know? Did they know that diseases were spread, or
Well,
was he trying to stop babies?
I can tell you this, Ron. It was not to do with not getting it pregnant. He might.
Oh, is it because everything gets turned to gold and he still wanted to fuck someone?
No, that's Midas, not Minos.
Oh.
Yeah. No.
Because that would be a really funny detail of that story.
But then it would just be a gold goat's bladder.
Yes, that's true. And it might not be able to get it off.
Ow. Yeah, because once the spunk came out, would that turn to gold and fuse it to you like glue?
I think you've got to assume that King Midas's spunk is enough him that wouldn't turn to gold.
Yeah.
But then that begs the question: does things that he spaffs on turn to gold?
Yeah, like, you know, that bit in Guardians of the Galaxy where he turns the black light on and it's disgusting. Oh no, it's a joke. He says it, doesn't he? He says, "He put a black light on it. It looks like a Jackson Pollock." You just know Midas's like bedroom, which corner he was wanking in, because it was all gold.
Looks like a bougie back Jackson Pollock,
Yeah.
even without that.
He may well, this King Minos though, he may well have had some kind of STI, because he used the goat's bladder because the king's semen was said to contain scorpions and serpents that killed his mistresses.
Oh. I guess he had crabs.
Could have been, or it could have been, I don't know, because it doesn't mention his wife or anything. But I guess if people are dying after having sex with him, it's not great.
No. Having such aggressive crabs that people are dying, that's a real state of affairs.
Yeah.
Why
Is it
aren't they
bad, though,
killing
that I
him?
sort of give him props that he did use a condom rather than just thinking mistresses were disposable?
Yeah, I mean,
Like, that seems good for an old king.
woke for the era, certainly. I mean, some of these old patriarchs, like back in day, they must have been riddled, right?
Yeah, well,
Like,
that...
if you think about Genghis Khan, famously, like, horrendously huge harem, he must have been walking around with some real knockout STDs.
Yeah, well, it comes up later, and I'll find it when we get to that bit. But I did find something in this research that I think it was syphilis or something like that, potentially was not in Europe until we went to the Americas. So it was a disease that got brought back. So prior to that, things like that didn't exist. I mean, obviously other ones would have, but I guess maybe there is potential that if you're, I suppose this doesn't apply to Genghis Khan so much, but if you are just shagging within a small pool, you've already built up the immunity to those diseases, and it's only when you're like spreading your net widely that you come across deadly ones.
Deadly ones, yeah. I think that is right. I think syphilis was brought back from the New World. Yeah, but yeah, it was the sort of the trade for all of the diseases that we brought over there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I've got some more ancient things, if you like. So,
Hit me.
There's Professor Franjo Gruber, who wrote a history.
Ooh, don't skate over the name Franjo Gruber.
Good. Guess where Franjo Gruber is from?
The Nakatomi Plaza.
No, Croatian. Franjo.
Franjo.
I don't know how you'd pronounce it. Wrote a history of venereal diseases from antiquity to the Renaissance, and
Franjo, I think, is the Portuguese word for chicken.
Could be Franco. Maybe it's pronounced. Maybe the J is a K.
No. But when Judith and I were in Portugal over the summer, she didn't eat anything called franjo because she thought it meant shrimp, and then we found out on the last day that it meant chicken, and she could have had any of them.
She's such a terrible vegetarian.
She's not a vegetarian.
She so was when we first met her. You ruined it.
No, Brussels ruined it.
Yeah, Brussels sucks.
Yeah.
Boo, don't
Anyway,
move to
Franjo.
Brussels. Franjo explained that on the Ebers papyrus, which must be some sort of famous Egyptian papyrus that they found. Papyrus? How do you say it?
Yeah, we've run into this before.
Yeah,
it's papyrus. It's not papyrus.
Papyrus. Mentions using sandal oil to soothe a urethral infection that might have been an STD.
Now, does that mean like sandalwood, like the tree?
No, I
does
think
that
it's
mean
juice
oil from a sandal?
Yeah, I think it's juice from your shoe. Once you've been bogging about in the Nile for a good few days, they leach that out and then they jam it on your bits.
Recipe for athlete's puss. That's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, none of these are good. So Judith Forai, probably pronounced, Forai, explains that Egyptians treated discharges from genitals with a variety of salves and ointments made with herbs, garlic, and perhaps a little tinge of powdered cow horn.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
You can really connect the dots there on these sort of, ancient medicine thing. Cow horn, erect penis.
Yeah.
This will treat that. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because I suppose cow horn, is it just keratin? What is horn?
I think so. It depends. Different creatures, it's different. Some it's more bone than others. Some it is keratin.
And obviously some it's ivory, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then we move on. So, we're talking about the Hippocratic Corpus, which I suppose is an early medical document. And that describes what could have been acute gonorrhea, and they call it strangury. Ooh. And they thought at the time it was caused by indulgences in the pleasures of Venus.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so they're starting to link these diseases with sex, which is where the term venereal disease comes from. Venus. Yeah. So that's fun, isn't it?
Do you think that avoiding STDs is a part of the root of the sort of male obsession with like virginity?
Yes, because this will come up somewhere as well. There was a horrible period of time where people thought sex with a virgin would clear you of STDs.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yikes!
Horrible. Pureness and all that sort of stuff. In fact, there's a really horrible patriarchal bit at the end, which is very miserable to read, but we'll do it when we get there. Gonorrhea seems pretty ancient in the Western world. So there's definitely Greek doctors talking about it and naming it before 200 Common Era. Gonorrhea is referred to as an unwanted discharge of semen.
Sure.
Yeah. So then we start to look at some cures. So we've got Silenus of Ephesus, and he took the very macho alpha male view that anybody that had an STI was weak. And you needed to sort your life out, bro. Otherwise, you were just a pathetic beta male. So he thought that gonorrhea was caused by an excess of semen or fluids, and the best way to cure yourself of that was to strap lead weights to your body to help your recovery. So the answer there is, got gonorrhea, get swole.
Yeah, just weigh yourself down. Like that Russian, I think he was like a gymnast trainer that used to strap weights to his daughters while they were growing.
Ew. What, to keep them tiny?
No, to strengthen them. Like when they were babies crawling around, he'd put like little weights on their hands and knees. So when they were crawling, they had to develop more muscle.
Oh, wow. Did they become good gymnasts?
I assume so.
Herpes dates back to ancient Greece too. And herpes is a Greek name like Hermes, I suppose. Maybe we're supposed to call it herpes.
Oh, yeah.
Let's start being
Hermes,
really
herpes.
bougie and calling herpes herpes. There's a Roman medical author called Aulus Cornelius Celsus, and he wrote a big medical treatise in the 1st century Common Era. And he thought if you had herpes, you just cauterize all the sores with a hot iron.
Oof.
Yeah, horrible. Oh, and here was a fact I quite enjoyed, Ron. So gonorrhea has been known as the clap for almost 700 years.
I thought chlamydia was the clap.
I don't think they knew the difference particularly.
Sure.
But yeah, basically the clap. And it probably, the etymology of the clap refers to the old Le Clapière district of Paris, which is where prostitutes were housed. So it's like a nickname based on that, which I did not know.
They're clever, aren't they?
Yeah.
You're right. The clap is gonorrhea. I always thought it was chlamydia.
I do think, though, that for a lot of history, people did not know which one they had.
Yeah, sure, but Google's saying gonorrhea, whereas I thought in today's parlance it meant...
Maybe it's shifted today.
Maybe. But no, Google is saying it's gonorrhea. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then we're going to jump a little bit, both geographically, and chronologically, because we're going to do that thing that science has taught me so often happens. Stop reading about gonorrhea, Ron.
I'm not.
I can see your face.
I was reading about pubic lice.
Pubic lice. We're gonna go to the Islamic Golden Age. So you have to imagine.
They always do it first, don't they?
Yeah, medieval Europe is running around with goats' bladders on their pricks, clapping and just cauterizing their dicks off every time something goes wrong. Whereas in China and the sort of, I think we're talking Iran and what was Persia.
Mesopotamia.
Yeah, that sort of area. They've got the cures for all this down pat. They've got an NHS with no waiting lists. They've cured it all. So, yes, we've got the doctor and director of hospitals of what would become Baghdad. There's a director of hospitals, Ron.
That's not a job that you think of like being like 500 years ago.
No, but this is the 8th century. So how long ago is that?
Fuck.
Like 1200 years ago.
This shouldn't be directors of anything.
Sitting in his corner office, just fixing up ward sisters.
Playing Angry Birds on his tablet, probably.
Yeah. I mean, he's not got it all down here.
No, he's still playing Angry Birds, you know. He's not playing PlayStation 5
No.
or something.
He describes genital ulcers and what's thought to be gonorrhea. They think that the treatment should be the introduction of goat's or breast milk to the infection.
I mean, like, I don't think that would do the job, but isn't it true that milk can have some properties like that to, like, it helps boost your baby's immune system or something?
Colostrum certainly does, which is the really early breast milk before your milk comes through that, like, gammy bit, I think. So they didn't know it all at this point, but they definitely had a lot of records that really helped future doctors understand what was going on. They were very good record keepers at this point in time. There's a Persian doctor called Ali Abbas, who diagnosed sort of a lot of infections and burning sensations and sort of kept good enough records that future doctors went on to understand. Meanwhile, so let's look at Europe in the same era. This is when they're starting to link STIs to sex. And yeah, they're really starting to blame women for it all happening.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. I suppose hence it being Venus, because she's the goddess of love, isn't she? So they didn't blame the male one.
No. Mars did nothing wrong.
No. Roger of Salerno, writing in the 1200s in Italy, he produced a practical surgery guide for...
I wish I was Ron of Bristol. That's a much cooler way to go.
Oh, we can call you that. You can be Ron of Bristol from now on.
I like that.
But you have to stay in Bristol.
Stop trying to control me.
I just don't want you to move back to stupid Brussels.
God, you live far away.
Yeah, I don't live in Brussels. You can move far away, but just not to boring, shitty Brussels.
It's not that different to getting from Brighton to Brussels.
I'm not talking about where it is, Ron. I'm talking about how it is.
Yeah.
I have no problem with you living far away from me. I just want wherever you live to be somewhere that makes you happy, and that is not Brussels. Anyway, Roger of Salerno. He talks
Where's
about
Salerno?
he talks about sexual diseases, and he thinks you should either have leeches stuck on your dick, or be bled. Bleeding and leeches is a big deal at this time.
Yeah, of course. It's surely, I mean, your penis kind of is just a permanent leech. Like, it sucks blood from the rest of you. So putting another leech on that seems like they're just going to pass blood between the Salerno's beautiful.
I wish you hadn't just referred to a penis as a kind of leech.
Well, you know what I mean.
No, I don't want to think about that.
Because it's blood that makes it swell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at Salerno.
It's a black pudding, really, isn't it? A sex black pudding.
It's a blood sausage.
Where have you sent me, Salerno?
No, it won't let me copy.
I'll
Do you
just
remember
Google
how?
Roger
Do you remember how
Salerno.
easy it used to be to get images from Google, and now it's fucking impossible.
I'm not getting beautiful Roger of Salerno. I'm getting drawn images of him cutting up a guy on a
No, I didn't
table.
say Roger from Salerno's beautiful. I said Salerno
Oh.
is beautiful.
I thought it was going to be, oh yeah, move to Salerno, Ron.
Salerno looks amazing.
Oh God, imagine living there and focusing on scummy dicks. You're crazy, Roger.
Imagine how scummy his dick must have been if that was the number one thing on his mind.
Oh, Rog. And we're learning about this through Professor Gruber's book, by the way. So he delicately refers to another process
Hans Bobby.
as urethral irrigation. This would have potentially involved an unsterilized instrument going into the urethra without any pain relief.
Some people love it.
Not this girl.
No. It's
Yeah.
called sounding.
Is it? Yeesh.
Yeah. Don't Google it.
I will not. I don't want to change my algorithms because I've always allowed all cookies and I don't need those cookies knowing about this. So this is where we hit the pretty gross idea that you can get rid of any of your disgusting issues by having sex with a virgin because their chastity made them resistant. And then that obviously becomes like child abuse rings and horrible prostitution things. And then obviously once the world opens up via good boats, we make it racist. So you could then substitute virgin for a different ethnicity and you're suddenly excusing yourself for raping people that you've just stolen from elsewhere in the world. There's a little bit of repercussion for men doing all this disgusting stuff with virgins and African women. There was, should we call it a rumour, started by potentially the smartest female doctor / prostitute you've ever met. There was a rumour that because gonorrhea is pus in your genitals, there was a theory that the best way you had to get this pus out, and the best way to do that was to smack yourself in the dick with a book. And all
the book's a nice touch.
Yeah. Which I really like the idea that some madam of a brothel has started this. Like, no, we haven't got any virgins today. But you know what does work? Get your Bible and just chunk your nuts down.
Go hammer and tong at your own business.
Yeah. If blood comes out too, that's fine. That's really good. Do it until you hear a popping noise. The 1800s is where things sort of start to get a bit medical. Huge question mark. Mercury starts to appear. So people are really looking for answers, and I think metals are getting interesting. Not interested. You don't just see little nugs queuing up at doors like, use me. Silver and gold. And arsenic and antimony, yeah. I don't know what that is though. You got
that's just a metal. I was going to say it sounds like the sort of thing that they'd have given Mercury a run at.
Yeah, definitely. Mercury is the big one. Mercury's the big boy for a while. It's the sertraline of the sexually transmitted 1800s. I guess, though, does this tie up... Is this when people are really starting to understand metal classification? 1800s?
In the 1800s? Yeah.
So the big metals, they're really starting to learn... they've always known the difference between gold and silver, etc., and the ones being used in everyday life. But I guess now you're understanding more and more metals.
Yeah, 1800s is when Mendeleev started putting together the periodic table and stuff.
Yeah, okay. Silver nitrate, which apparently is toxic. And
yeah.
Fumigation. I don't know if they'd fumigate you. Yeah.
Try and smoke it out.
Yeah, for syphilis. Indonesian peppers. I don't think they did anything. I guess this is a time when humours are big, aren't they? So the more you're sweating and puking and shitting and bleeding, the more they...
No, this is coming out of the humours time, I think.
Oh,
I
okay.
think humors would have been, like the leeches and the get the liquids out. That's humors time.
Yeah, okay. So then we're getting into germ theory, sort of this point where people are starting to understand microorganisms. I'll leave this because obviously you're going to do this in more detail.
Yeah.
On our running theme of is there nothing that the Chinese and early Islamic culture can't do, they were using mercury for syphilis from, it's referenced as early as 2637 BC.
Where were people getting all this fucking mercury from to just be pissing it away trying to cure literally anything with it?
I don't know. Where do you find mercury? In the ground?
I guess. I've never seen any.
No, it's never just been a puddle of mercury on the floor. But they would apply it to the skin as an ointment or swallow it as pills or drink it as an elixir.
I think we've said this before on the podcast and agreed, but I get it. Like, I think if I didn't know what mercury was and I saw some, I'd be fascinated by it and think it was amazing.
So yeah, basically, you'd catch the disease and you'd just be being treated forever, or you'd die of the cures. And there was a very popular witty phrase, Ron, called "One night with Venus, a lifetime with Mercury."
Ooh.
So yeah, you'd basically often die. I didn't know this though, that is it syphilis? I think it's syphilis where you get the first bout of symptoms and then it kind of dies down for a while, which is why these cures, even though they didn't work, remained in circulation for so long, was that you had this like false reprieve moment before it would come back. I think that's
well, we'll learn about how syphilis progresses in a bit.
Yeah, okay. So then, just to move on then, this bit was so depressing. They brought in a Contagious Disease Act of 1864 because basically STIs are a huge problem in the military.
I'm sure.
I imagine they still are now. They were back then. So they wanted to control the way soldiers and sailors... Are you clipping your nails?
No.
What are you doing?
Trying to get the screen off my phone. Putting it down.
Don't take the screen off your phone, Ron. That's a really bad idea.
No, the screen protector.
Why take that off?
Because it's broken.
Okay. So they brought in this act, but the act only applied to women.
Women in the military?
No, the women that the military was sleeping with. So I don't think women were in the military in 1864.
Yeah, that's why it was...
You could register, arrest, and give invasive medical examination of any woman suspected of being a prostitute. And if you were found to have a venereal disease, you could be locked up in a medical institution. And if you refused to be examined, you'd take 6 months hard labour in prison, and there was no compliance by men required in this act. So they wanted men to stop fucking about, so they absolutely punished women.
It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. And then, basically from there, we get into probably what you're going to talk about. But I did find it fascinating. I was sort of getting a bit late now and into the stuff that you're probably going to discuss. But how fascinating is this? During the First World War, 5% of British troops were infected with an STI. That is, 400,000 British men were admitted to hospital as a result. That is over 5 times the hospitalisation rate for trench foot. Trench dick. And by the middle of the war, 50% of infertility in women was caused by gonorrhea, and 30% of children in blind schools were there as a result of syphilis.
Wow.
So that's why STIs are so important to be controlled, because if you live in a time where you're letting them run rampant, that's like banging infertility. So you think like, in books and stuff, there seems to be a lot of infertility and things like that. Well, if you think of that rampant gonorrhea floating about, there must have been hella infertility back in the day because of this.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if the troops were banging each other as well. That's just going to pass it all around.
Yeah. So there you go, Ron. There's the unscientific guide to STIs.
I've got a couple of stats for you.
I love a stat, Ron.
Yeah. There's over 30 different bacteria, viruses, and parasites that cause STIs. Loads of different ones. Although there's like 8 biggies that are the ones that affect the world the most, basically. You want to try and name as many as possible?
And this is just bacterial, so we're not talking
No.
Oh,
Any of them.
okay. So HIV,
Yep.
gonorrhea,
Yep.
syphilis,
Yep.
chlamydia,
Yep.
herpes,
Yep.
genital warts. Is that the
Not
same as
one of the big
herpes?
8.
No, not one of the big 8. Okay.
One you get a jab for if you're a woman when you're a teenager.
Yeah, what's the not UPV, HPV?
Yep.
Yes.
Human papillo.
Yeah.
Papillomavirus.
That came up in one of my exams, didn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was all about whether we should tell girls about it or something.
Whether their parents would let them have a jab.
Yeah.
I'm a bit stuck now.
Yeah. So Hep B.
Yeah. Oh, hepatitis, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one. So I'll reveal as we go through this bit. So in 2020, the World Health Organization estimated that 374 million new infections worldwide.
Whoa.
Yeah. This so you got 129 chlamydia infections. We'll talk more about chlamydia in a bit. 82 million gonorrhea infections, syphilis 7.1 million, and then the last one of the big 8, 156 million infections of it, trichomoniasis.
Oh, don't know that one.
No, me neither. Never heard of it at all. And then I googled it because I was like, is this like the word for something else? You know, like that the fancy word for something more common parlance. Couldn't find anything.
Can I potentially inject something that is mercury? No, that could be just false. But I do remember hearing a thing that some of this like bop up in STI infections was caused by the fact that we now live in a time where a lot more people post menopause are shagging and divorced and single and not necessarily using contraceptive because there's no risk of pregnancy, and therefore that was causing like quite high STI numbers in retirees and older people. Now that could be bollocks and something I heard that I'm passing on completely willy-nilly, but I vaguely remember
I think you're dead on. I think there's an episode of Scrubs about that.
Oh, maybe that's where I got it from. Well, if Scrubs says it, then it must be true.
So, hang on. Obviously, like we think of these things all as like inherently involving sex, and we call them like sexually transmitted infections or whatever, but they're just transmitted via contact, you know, like none of these like shoot out in the spaff or something, if you know what I mean. Like they or at least as far as I'm aware, none of them do that. It's all just about the contact. So
but it's not in your like spit and stuff.
Like some of them will be everywhere because it's just like bacteria. Some of them like are given between people during sex because like the penis or whatever happens to be where the lesion forms and the bacteria live in the lesion.
Right. Okay.
So then if you have sex, that you'll pass that on there. But then you were talking about blind kids because of syphilis.
Yeah.
Obviously, those kids got syphilis from somewhere, and that's because you can pass it from like mother to child and stuff like that.
Oh.
So there's different ways to get it. Not all of them are banging. That just happens to be, I think, when people get very, very close to each other, and therefore it's easy to pass an infection between people. And obviously, you've got stuff like HIV, which obviously sharing needles or something is a way to pass that between people. And things like hepatitis. You can get that in many different ways. The other thing that it mentioned on the World Health Organization that I found interesting is like there's these ones that we consider sort of the classic STIs and stuff, but actually like often when there's like new outbreaks of things, they can be transmitted by sex as well. So like Mpox, Ebola, Zika virus, all of these things can be passed between each other while having sex.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because, like, if you think of COVID, if you can pass that on just by standing and having a chat, you're going to pass it on shagging, aren't you?
Yeah. So, I haven't gone into all of the different ones because that would be long. There's loads. So what I did was I read a bunch about them, and then found the two that I thought were most interesting.
Okay.
So one, syphilis.
Yeah.
Syphilis.
It's just a horrible word, isn't it?
Syphilis.
It's very
Yeah.
Severus Snape. Salazar Slytherin. Syphilis.
Syphilis.
Yeah, good name for a snake, wouldn't it? Syphilis.
Apart from, I think that people would think that was weird.
Yeah. But I
Snakes
think if you own a snake, you're already weird.
Snakes are very penile.
Yeah. But maybe if you had an attack snake, it's just an extra scariness, Like if you have a big dog called Bruiser, and then you've got a big snake called Syphilis.
A big dog called the Clap.
Yeah.
Syphilis is so William Osler, who I realise I haven't actually Googled who that is, referred to syphilis as the great imitator.
Yes.
Because it has loads and loads and loads of different symptoms that
And he
it
does
can
a banging
kick up.
Robert De Niro impression. Your dick's in your pants being like Robin Williams at the beginning of Mrs. Doubtfire.
And it happens in 4 stages as well. So you kind of have to know the different stages of it to know like all of the different
anger,
symptoms.
denial, grief.
A lot of grief. There's going to be a picture that I'll send you at some point that's going to... Don't worry, it's not of a knob or anything.
Do you know what you've made me think of as a teenager? There's when the internet only had like 5 pages and one of them was blue waffle.
Oh, God. Yeah, I've never seen Blue Waffle.
Don't do it, Ron. Protect your innocence.
Blue Waffle, Lemon Party, Meat Spin. The internet used to be wild. So, you have primary syphilis, Laura.
That's key stages 1 to 3?
It sounds like in history it was, according to what you said. This happens 2 to 6 weeks after you pick it up. And I've got to say, with all of these things, there is a fairly strong chance that you get no symptoms at all, which is fucked. But 2 to 6 weeks, and then you get a skin lesion called a chancre, appears basically on your genitals, and that's full of the infectious bacteria.
Right.
That's stage 1. Get it treated then, because it's only downhill from here.
Okay. If you get no symptoms, are you still ill, or are you just resistant? Like, is it only the symptoms that are bad? Do you know what I mean?
I think you can still pass it on.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
So get rid.
How would you know you had it?
Well, yeah, get tested.
Yeah.
Because that's literally Jez from Peep Show logic. He gets chlamydia, and then because it's symptomless, he doesn't tell anyone.
Yes. Terrible man.
Then, 4 to 10 weeks after the primary infection, you can get secondary syphilis. Now, this is where it really starts to just be insane what you can get. But it really affects your skin. It can affect your mucous membranes, which affects transport of different things in the body. Your lymph nodes. A symmetrical reddish pink non-itchy rash on the trunk and extremities, including the palms and soles. The rash may become pustular, wart-like lesions.
This is horrible.
Yeah, all of these become infectious.
Oh no.
Yeah. And then also fever, sore throat, malaise, weight loss, hair loss, and headache.
Of course you've got malaise. Of course. You look like you've been on a cheese grater and you can't touch anyone without killing them.
Yeah. And it's been 10 weeks since you had a shag, so you really want to as well. But also liver inflammation, kidney disease, joint inflammation, periosteitis, inflammation of the optic nerve, uveitis, and interstitial keratitis.
Well, of all the things I don't want, it's uveitis.
Yeah. Should we find out what that is?
No. Uvula, is that going to be...
No, it's the inflammation of the uvea, the pigmented layer of the eye, between the inner retina and the outer fibrous layer composed of the sclera and the cornea.
So this is why people are going blind then?
Yeah. Were you ever into House?
No, but you and sisters of the podcast were in a big way.
Yeah, and Mum. It's syphilis is one of those things that comes up quite a lot in House because of this. It can
the great imitator.
Yeah. Right. Then, Laura, get this. Tertiary syphilis.
Oh, tertiary means end phase. I know that from science.
It means third.
Oh.
Tertiary syphilis, 3 to 15 years after the initial
okay.
infection.
So if you can cope with being like a walking bedsore for 3 to 15 years, you've got some life expectancy.
Yes, however...
With your oozing eyes and your massive liver.
Well, so there's at this point, it splits into 3 different types.
Oh.
You have late neurosyphilis.
Oh, God.
Yeah, which this is the one that would come up in House a lot, and again, it was slightly too many different symptoms and whatnot to go through. But it's called neurosyphilis. It's not good.
No.
That can kill you, and it can kill you. It can kill you a lot. The brain, the spinal cord. Several different organ systems. Terrible, bad times. Then you can also get cardiovascular syphilis. So that's affecting your fucking heart.
Oof, also bad. Need that too.
Still not the worst one.
Oh, no.
Because then you've got... Well, I mean, actually the worst. This is... I'm being slightly facetious here. Because you also have gummatous syphilis.
What's my gummatous? I didn't even know I had one, and now it's got syphilis.
I'm going to send you a picture now.
No.
And you're going to be like, don't worry, it's not of a knob. And you're going to be like, yeah, okay, that is kind of gummatous. I'm sending it on WhatsApp. It won't let me send pics on the Google Meet.
All right, I'm going to the WhatsApp web. I'm waiting for... Oh, wow. Okay, so gummatous makes it look like you were made in the Weta workshop. That looks like sort of growths under your skin. Is it growing in cartilage or something?
It's characterized by the formation of conic gummas, which are soft, tumor-like balls of inflammation which may vary considerably in size. They typically affect the skin, bone, and liver, but can occur anywhere.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want that and your brain under siege and your heart stopping.
No.
If you're going to die sexy.
Gummatous syphilis makes you look, in this specific case, like kind of like something from Spore.
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah. And then you also have congenital syphilis. That's the type that's transmitted during pregnancy or birth. Mostly no symptoms, but can get anything from just the rash to neurosyphilis and lung inflammation. So it's all bad.
Yeah.
Don't give people syphilis.
Yes. Okay, Ron. I won't.
And then the last one the other one I wanted to talk about was chlamydia. And this one's much shorter because it's mostly symptomless. It can cause
Does it cause infertility, chlamydia?
Infertility was the word I was looking for. I kept on going, barrenness?
Dusty womb.
Yeah, so bad. However, why? You get something called. Don't have it in my notes. But basically, long-term chlamydia, where it's just symptomless, basically forever. Because chlamydia is amazing at doing what it does. It's one of the most phenomenal infectious diseases ever. Because, like, the ideal... I wrote an essay on this at university. The ideal pathogen is one that's highly infectious, but never kills the thing that it lives in.
Yeah.
So it can just keep on living there and never triggers any kind of immune response. So I hypothesized that is chlamydia, because what chlamydia does when it gets inside you is, so you remember the membrane of the cell.
Yeah.
On the membrane, you have like different markers and stuff, so that like you trigger an immune response if something's not from your body, basically. And obviously, if a bacteria goes in, your body can be like, holy shit, there's a bacteria. But it's super, super sensitive, right down to if you get like a heart transplant or something, your body knows that's not your heart. And that's why you have to take immunosuppressants if you have organ transplants and stuff. So it's a hugely, hugely sensitive system. What chlamydia does is it essentially wraps itself in a little jacket of your cell membrane, so that when it like touches anything to your body, that's just your cell. It's like almost completely sort of invisible to everything because it lives within kind of a vesicle within your cells.
Wow. So how do they test for that then? That must be a very advanced test to find it.
That's a good question. I don't know. It can only, and that's the only place it can survive. Like it doesn't live outside of there.
So if it's not in a body, it's dead.
Yeah. How do you test for chlamydia? Urine or secretions from your bits. I'm not seeing how the test works.
No,
but yeah, I guess you must just piss out some of it. Yeah. But yeah, super, super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Oh, I almost want to do a deeper dive on chlamydia.
I looked for the essay that I wrote, but I couldn't find it. It must have been on my old laptop.
So how does chlamydia cause infertility then? What does it do inside that makes that happen?
It damages the fallopian tubes in the uterus, apparently. And it also affects sperm count, so it lowers fertility on the men's side. But obviously it's just like, it's not good for cells having bacteria running rampant through them like that. Yeah.
All right, Ron. Well, thank you very much. I found that fascinating, and I hope it's got you all in the mood for a sexy Valentines 2025. We love you. Be safe. Let's all get tested this week and share how we felt about it in the Discord.
Yeah. Everyone get tested.
All right.
Join a union. Get tested.
Get tested. We'll see you next week for A-Level. Dicks
Penises down.